kids, it's so good to have you all back. Today we are going to study Pablo Neruda's famous poem Keeping Quiet from class 12 Flamingo. Let's see about the author. Pablo Neruda was famous for the simple yet powerful language which he used in his poetry. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature for his passionate poetry in 1971. He was known as one of the greatest poets of the 20th century. His poetries covered topics like love, nature, politics, peace, humanity, and social justice. Let us first watch this video. What if the world kept silent for just one moment? Have you ever thought about it? How peaceful it would be. In this poem, the poet gives us a very powerful message that sometimes silence is the best way to bring peace, unity, and self reflection. Now let's go through the poem line by line with simple explanations. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. Still means without movement. Okay. So the poet tells that now we will all count till 12. 12 here could either symbolize the 12 months of the year or it could symbolize the 12 hours which are shown in the clock. Okay. So the poet asks us all to count till 12 and remain still, as in remain silent. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. So the poet says that for a minute, let us all not speak. For once on the face of the earth means for once let the earth witness a situation where nobody speaks anything in any language. Now he says, let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. Now the poet says that if we all stop and not move our arms so much, let's stop working whatever we are doing. This will give us a chance to reflect on ourselves. The poet wants us to avoid speaking and stop all activities for a while. This silence will help to unite everyone. Now, the poet says that it would be an exotic moment without rush. Exotic is something unusual. Okay, something unusual. So, the poet says that if such a situation happens on the earth, it would be a very unusual situation where nobody will be in rush. Rush means hurry. So, the poet says that it will be a very different moment which will be peaceful. There would be no hurry. There would be no engines working. That means because everybody will stop working, nobody will be working on computers, machines, or any other kind of stuff. So everybody will be at peace. They would stop. So the poet says we would all be together then in a sudden strangeness. Okay? In a situation like today, you can see everybody around us is busy doing something, either reading, writing, listening to music, working on computers, and whatnot. So, if we stop for a second and let's not do anything, so we will all be together and we will find ourselves in a different kind of strangeness. Okay? So, the poet says that fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales. So, the fishermen also who are at work to catch sea whales. So they will also for some time not be able to do the job. They will avoid killing whales for some time. And the man gathering the salt would look at his hurt hands. The man gathering the salt here is an example of all the laborers or all the workers who are continuously struggling to make an earning for themselves. So the poet says that all the laborers, all the workers who are working day and night will for a moment get some time for rest, and they will be able to look at themselves and look at how hurt they have been. They'll be able to pay attention to their selves. Okay, moving on with this. Now the poet says that those who prepare green wars are nuclear wars. So the poet says that people who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victories with no survivors. That means it all leads to a destructive situation where nobody remains alive, where everybody is affected in one or the other way. So people who do such kinds of job, again, as the poet said, nobody will be working, so these people will also stop working for some time. Okay, they would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers. That means the people with whom they are working, even they will be with them, but not doing anything destructive. Okay, in the shade, doing nothing. That means the poet says that even those who plan wars and destruction will stop fighting and live peacefully with others. Okay, now the poet says what I want should not be confused with total inactivity. The poet says that inactivity is not working at all. Okay, so the poet says that when I say that we need to pause, that means I do not want to convey this message that let's, just sleep and not do anything else. So the poet says that if we were not single minded about keeping our lives moving, moving as in we are always involved in doing something or the other, everybody is in a rush, right? So the poet says that silence does not mean laziness or death. Okay? He talks about peace, not destruction. So the poet says that if we were all not so single minded, as in if we not only kept on thinking about how to keep ourselves going, how to focus on the next thing, next thing, next thing, if we stop ourselves from that distraction and for once we could do nothing, as in we could stop focusing on the daily routine and just take a moment of silence, huge silence. Now, this silence is extremely important because it will help us to take a moment to introspect, to check what we want and what we have been doing, right? So he says perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this silence, though we are all working continuously day and night, moving to get one or the other task done, right? But we are all in a state of sadness, we are all in a state of anxiety. We have wishes that are completely always changing and are always like unfulfilled. For example, I want a house. Once I get a house, I want a bigger house. Then I want a bigger car. Then I want bigger and bigger things in life. So I'm never satisfied. Okay. So the poet says that if we, for once, stop focusing on the things we are doing and take a moment of introspection or take a moment of silence. So, this might help us to interrupt this sadness, this continuous mental torture that we are giving ourselves. This might be hampered. Okay. Now, what is this sadness about? Of never understanding ourselves. That means we are never giving a moment to check or introspect ourselves and see what we really want in life. What we, how do we understand others when we ourselves fail in understanding our own, wishes, our own aspirations in life? So the poet says that this sadness is of never understanding ourselves and it is also threatening ourselves with death. So the poet says that we are always afraid of trying something new. We always fear the risk that this might pose a threat to our life. So the poet says that let's stop doing that. Let's live, right? Let's stop surviving and let's just live. So the poet here says that humans are obsessed with constant activity. If they pause, they may be able to uh, overcome their sadness, violence, and the ignorance of self. Okay, coming to the last paragraph. Now the poet says that perhaps the earth can teach us when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive, right? Earth is a clear example of how silence does not mean death. Here in this background image, you can see there are a lot of seeds. Okay, now seeds, if you see, if the climate is not according to their uh, we can say what suits them, so they do not sprout. They can be like the seeds, if found in fossils, can survive for millions of years. So similarly, seeds which look as dead as anything, when they get the favorable temperature and a favorable environment, they sprout. So when they seem dead but they are still alive, so the poet says that this is a perfect example. This can easily teach us that when everything seems dead, okay, in the autumn season when all leaves fall off, there is yellow trees everywhere. There are yellow trees everywhere. Everything looks so dull and sad. But then once the spring arrives, it's all blossoming in green again. So the poet says that earth is the best one to teach us how when everything seems dead, there is still always a hope that survives. Okay. So now the poet says, now I will count up to 12 and you will keep quiet and now I will go. So the poet says that here, that now that you understand that when everything looks lifeless, but there is a hope of new life that is soon to come. So the poet says that now he's ending the poem by saying that now I am going to depart. Now I am going to uh, take a leave, and you all will count to 12. That means you all will remain silent and you will introspect and try to understand what you've been ignoring till now about your own self. Only then you can be fruitful for others. Okay? So now we have reached the end of the poem. Now, to summarize it all, I can tell you that the poem Keeping Quiet basically tells us that silence and stillness can bring peace, unity, and self realization in our life. Okay, so the poet wants us to stop violence, wars, and exploitation of nature and instead live in harmony and in peace with each other and also the earth. Okay. Thanks for watching the video. If you have any doubts, please drop your doubts down in the comment section and I'll be waiting for your responses. Thank you. If you like the video, please like, share and subscribe.